Okay. This is our first live for Go Creative Show, so it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be messy. That's why we're doing it a couple days before Thanksgiving, figuring that people are traveling and they don't have that much time to go and randomly check things out. But I did put a post to it on our Instagram, and let me see if it pops up in YouTube. This is very interesting new technology here for us at Go Creative Show. Connor, how you doing today?
Great. We had a really fun location scout earlier today that went really well. And now we're hopping on here to hear your thoughts on Wicked.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about it. I saw Wicked. Connor's been a big fan of Wicked the play for many, many years and has seen the movie, of course. I just saw Wizard of Oz for the very first time a couple weeks ago, so I know nothing about Wicked. But I know, Connor, how many times did you see the movie?
I am psychotic. I've seen it 5 times. I don't know if I would have seen it this many times if I didn't have AMC's, I think they call it A-list. Basically, it's a subscription where you can see 3 movies a week.
Oh my God. Hold on, I'm just checking YouTube to see if this is actually, and it is. Okay, good.
Awesome.
I'm gonna shut the volume off. So I guess it is working. For those of you watching, thank you for bearing with us as we figure out this technology. Okay, so you've been a fan of Wicked forever. You saw the play a bunch of times. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, because you were so close to the theater production. Now, how does it translate into the movie?
Yeah, actually, my husband and some siblings and I decided about a month ago that we wanted to go see the performance on Broadway one more time before the actual movie came out. So we wanted to kind of have it fresh in our mind. That way, when we go see the movie, or
I'm
that
here.
was weird.
I see you.
Okay,
I see you.
it was frozen for a second. Very weird. Sorry, we're dealing with the live technical difficulties.
Oh yeah, this is the real deal here.
So, I we saw that about a month ago, and then because of this podcast, we were able to get tickets to screenings ahead of time, and so that was really cool and really exciting. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the movie. As someone that knows what Wicked is about, both part 1 and 2, what we've seen so far, I feel like they did a really good job at staying true to the Broadway show, not cutting anything out, not making anything like super different, but also making its own by making it a little bit more modern, by changing a few minor things here or there. Of course, having incredible actors in this as well. So I think overall, I give it a 2 thumbs up.
Is there any gossip about this movie? Like, I want to hear something juicy about it. I want to hear some drama. I want to hear something. One of the things that I notice is it's like, I feel like this is going to be so hard to light because it's just so huge. Like, every set is massive. It's kind of 360. I mean, you need big, giant wide shots to see everybody dance. I feel like as a cinematographer, it's probably kind of challenging and maybe not even that rewarding to film something that's big and huge scale like this, because like everything has to just be lit so brightly and so flat in order to see everything.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That is the drama of the movie. Is a lot of people are finding that the cinematography was not as vibrant as the Wizard of Oz, which of course is very vibrant. And I have heard some interviews from Alice Brooks, who's the cinematographer, as well as John M. Chu, who's the director, stating that they kind of went for more of a realistic kind of color palette versus something that was so vibrant like Wizard of Oz.
And honestly, I kind of like that choice. I was kind of the scenes that resonated to me the most are the more dramatic, just regular scenes. Like the big, giant, show-stopping scenes just felt like a lot. Like it was just, it felt like a time. Like I almost feel like if I was watching it, I want to see it in a theatrical production is kind of how I came out of the movie. I came out of the movie being like, it's an interesting story. I actually really liked the story. I thought it was kind of cool. and totally not what I thought it was going to be. Going into this movie blind, not knowing anything, which I know I'm probably one of the only people in the world that knew nothing about it or Wizard of Oz going into it. But I thought that they really did a good job with like in the more dramatic scenes, just bringing it down a beat and letting it just be a regular movie for a moment. And those are the scenes that I really resonated with. And I thought the acting was really good. I was very pleased with the acting. It's hard to sing and act and look like a real person, like to give emotion while you're singing in a movie format. That's hard to do. So I don't know. I kind of feel like, I don't know if anybody's talking about the acting, but I was pleasantly surprised by the acting. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I think there were some concerns with Ariana Grande because, yes, she's done acting, but from my understanding, the only acting that she's really done is when she was a child for, I want to say it was the Disney Channel. And so other than that, people only really got to see Ariana Grande on stage performing, singing songs and whatnot. And so they didn't really have a way to gauge how she was going to be. Was she just going to be herself, basically? And I think she did a really good job at transforming herself, both from an acting perspective as well as from a vocal perspective. Like, she's hitting incredible notes in this movie that weren't necessarily, at least to me, didn't seem very possible a couple of years ago listening to her.
Yeah. And anybody watching right now, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, we want to know what you thought of the movie Wicked. And now this is our very first time doing a live podcast. We don't know how it's going to go. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's not. We'd love your feedback. We're kind of like figuring this out as we go. And we'll be chatting for like, maybe another 10 minutes or so. And we're talking about the movie Wicked. So if you have some thoughts, throw them in the chat. We will address them. So yeah, I think I didn't know what to expect acting-wise from Ariana Grande. I was very pleased. And I think like there's a subtlety in movies, and like the way that you act in movies has to be so subtle because you're big in the frame. The camera's right there. I mean, you're right up against people's faces. Whereas in theater, you have to be huge because your audience is far away. So I think it's got to be challenging adapting something that is made for the stage to a movie and not have it feel too big. And I feel like whenever there were moments that I felt like this just isn't hitting me, it was those moments where it felt like too much. And I thought there were a few of them, and I know it is a musical, but every once in a while I felt like, okay, this is too much. I just want to like advance the story right now. I don't need a musical number every 5 seconds. That was sort of my thought. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, and it's not about not liking musicals, because I do. But it just felt like it was dragging a little bit at times. Did you feel that at all? I mean, obviously not. You saw it 5 times, but did you ever feel like there was a moment of drag?
No, and it's funny you say that because the actual Broadway performance is basically the length of just this part 1 movie. So you could say that, and obviously they added more character development, more backstory to these. But if you felt like that there was music too often, that we were, not getting enough in between, I don't know how much you'd like the Broadway show, considering there's a ton more songs crammed in the same length of time.
I think in a theatrical, like if I went to go see the play and it was song after song after song, that's what I'm there to see. That's what I want to see. And I feel like I'd give it a little bit more leeway. In a movie setting, I just want to kind of like see character development. I want to see stuff like that. And sometimes the songs pull me out. Now, granted, this is supposed to be like a big, giant production, and it is. So I understand all of those things, and I'm sure this is just a preference. But that said, I think things I loved about it. Thought the acting was great. Obviously, it looks really good. Production design is out of control how good it is. And I feel like it ended so strong. Once they get to the Emerald City, from there to the end, I was like, this is great. And it made me say like, oh, I wish we just got here a little bit sooner. because this is like the meat of it. When the story turns and it starts becoming more sinister, I'm like, oh, I love this. Now I want to know what happens. And not having seen the play, I don't know what happens, and I don't want to know what happens until I'm actually ready to see the play.
Yeah, you're gonna love part two because that is essentially it. It basically puts Wizard of Oz. It flips it around. So you thought you knew the story, but in reality you didn't. And this was kind of really the prequel to Wizard of Oz. So you had a lot more. Explaining things and setting things up and character development and stuff like that. So I think you're gonna like part two, and hopefully the rest of us will too.
Do we know anything about the cinematography? I know we're working toward getting Alex Brooks back on the
Alice.
show. She was Alice. She was on for In the Heights. So, and I really enjoyed talking with her, and I think her work is unbelievable. So I'm very excited to talk with her about this movie. But do we know anything about the cinematography? Do we know, is there any kind of details out there floating around about perhaps maybe what she used, some of the techniques?
Yeah, I don't have any technical details that I can share with you, but I know that with our prep research for her upcoming interview, I discovered that they really wanted to pay homage to Americana and like great big American movies because Wicked is an American story. Wizard of Oz is an American story. And so they really wanted to make sure that the cinematography was showcasing that. Like, for example, the school scenes took homage from a lot of like high school kind of movies. I can't name any off the top of my head, but like any kind of great Hollywood high school movie, they borrowed some cinematography tricks from that. And so that was one thing. I know that they wanted this to feel very real, which is, I think, having to do with the colors and having it be very natural, have a lot of natural lighting. It looks like they were using some kind of either haze or diffusion because I felt like we were getting a lot of softness from those windows, particularly in the library scene.
Oh, yeah. In the library scenes, the windows are totally blown out in some of the shots, which I thought was kind of interesting. I sort of liked it, but I'm eager to talk to the cinematographer about that choice. Was that something? I mean, I have to assume that they had control over the lighting. I have to assume that's a set and not like the real world. So a choice was made to have that blow out, and I found that kind of interesting. It was probably in an attempt to stay more natural and have it be real world.
Yeah, I'm sure it has to do with that. I'm sure it has to do with the fact that because there's a big musical number there, they really wanted the flexibility to be able to move around wherever and not have to worry about big lighting rigs. Certainly, could have had lights hung up on the ceiling, but other than that, I think they were kind of limited. So yeah, I'm very curious to hear what she says and how that kind of changed when they went to the land of Oz, the city of Oz.
Which I thought was the coolest part. I mean, going there, and I know obviously it's kept to the end, so I know people were excited and looking forward to that. So, it was a big deal. But how do the sets compare to the Broadway show? Are they similar in their scale and the look?
I mean, they're quite different because on stage you're so limited with what you can and can't do. They just have I forget the like flats basically. They just have flats that they can kind of wheel in and wheel out, and they only have so many. So I would say in that case, it far exceeds what they've done on the stage. They did a really good job. Like I love how practical they were with all the different sets, with the school itself and the Emerald City.
It looked like in that opening scene that the poppy fields were real.
They were, yeah. Actually, on that note, I remember hearing John M. Chu mention in a featurette that they planted 9 million poppy seeds, and they didn't tell the studio
God.
about it. And the studio, after heard about it, and they're like, "No, you can't plant that many." And he's like, "Oh, we already did."
What Why not tell the studio? Was there a reason that he didn't? Did he just know they were going to say no?
Yeah, I think they were probably thinking, that's something that we can easily do in VFX. You only need so many, but he really wanted that to be done practically, and so he knew the studio wouldn't have necessarily agreed to that, and did it anyways.
Well, something I noticed when we're talking about using practical effects, it felt like the opening scene, like the pre-credit scene before it comes up saying,
Wicked
I
Part
keep
One.
want to say Wicked Part Chapter One or whatever. It looks very practical. Like the sets almost look like the kind of old school set design, which when I was watching it, I was kind of annoyed. But as I reflect back on it, I'm like, that was kind of interesting because it really does take off right where Wizard of Oz left, which I understand it, but I don't know. For some, I think I expected like a big wow moment from the very beginning, and it felt a little bit old school and a little bit, I don't want to say dated, but it felt like it was being referenced directly from Wizard of Oz, which I thought was an interesting choice. More in hindsight, I like it than I did when I was watching it originally. But of course, after, post credit, it's like, or not even credit, but like once they say the title of the film, everything from there, of course, is modernized. But
Yeah, I think we're very intentional, and also you have to keep in mind that like that is Munchkin land that she's in, and so their living conditions are different than the rest of the land of Oz. Because I don't know if you remember seeing at one point there's a map that shows the whole land of Oz and how there's different pockets, like and even characters mentioning like Fiyero says that he's from Winky Country, and that's more of a prestigious and higher class kind of area. So there's these different pockets and neighborhoods and whatnot. And so Munchkin Land is on the poorer side, and I'm sure there's better terms to use that I just can't think of right now. But I think maybe that's what you're also responding to.
so you saw it 5 times in the theater, in the movie theater. You saw the
Yes.
play 5 times.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot of time dedicated to this film. There must have been you must have been at some point watching it and being like, why am I watching this again? Or did you truly stay with it, full attention, all the way through every single viewing?
So I wouldn't say that I came to the impression of like, why am I watching this? I love the music very much so. Like my husband and I, when we're on driving in the car, like we'll just put on the soundtrack at various points or whatever. And we've become equally obsessed with the soundtrack for the movie. So when watching the movie, unlike you, I'm like the opposite of you. I very much look forward to the musical numbers in the movie. And so during those sequences, I'm fine. But I did catch myself the last screening that I saw it where I'm like, okay, like, come on. Let's speed this up a little. Like I'd like to be done with this. And I have other family members that are wanting to see it with me, so I know I'm going to be seeing it at least one or two more times.
Oh my God, I just can't, I can't believe it. I can't believe the amount, the amount of time dedicated to this. But that's a real movie fan. That is that's the type of fan you want of your product, is somebody like you that goes to something over and over and over again. So I think that's good. I'm sure they love it. They want
I did
more
want to
people like you.
ask you though, because you haven't seen the Broadway show, there is a cameo, and by the way, this is a big spoiler. So if you are a fan of Wicked and haven't seen the movie, turn away right now.
Don't
Mute
turn
your
away.
device.
Just deal with it. Who cares?
Mute your speakers. I was not spoiled, and I was very happy about it. But Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel both made a cameo. They were during Wizamania, which is like that Broadway-esque show that was explaining how the wizard came to be. Did you recognize that they
Yeah,
were
I
famous actors?
recognize them.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I didn't know they had anything to do with Wicked. I just know who they are. And I was like, oh, maybe they have something to do with the play, but that's all I really knew about it.
Yeah, they did. They were the opening actresses for Elphaba and Glenda for Wicked. So it was amazing to see them and have the nice cameo like that.
I thought obviously the choreography is really good. They're all dancers at all. It's fantastic. You expect it. I thought the camera choreography was particularly interesting to me because just thinking about how are you landing exactly where you need to land perfectly at every moment? It's just it's got to be such an undertaking to have to worry about the lighting, to have to worry about all of that, the framing, and then also these moves that need to land perfectly. Like it really was a feat to pull this off. It's kind of amazing that something like this can even happen. Not to mention doing your absolute best to light it in a way where it looks cinematic, which, it's hard to do when you have big, giant, vast scenes like they do in Wicked.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love some of the little like tiny cinematography choices that she made, like when she was able to help express Glinda's personality and comedy through cinematography. Like when she raises her wand at one point, the camera like tilts up quickly to see that, or like when she points down, it does the same thing, or like when she gets really close to Alphaba during the beginning of Popular, the camera is like slowly inching with her movement. Like I loved those little moments. So I think Alice, did a really good job balancing all of that.
So we're working towards getting Alice Brooks on the show once again to talk about her career, but specifically Wicked. She was on before for In the Heights, so looking forward to speaking with her again. But yeah, I mean, those are our thoughts on Wicked. Curious what you guys think. Leave your comments in the show notes or in the comment section of whatever you're watching this on. And more specifically, I'd like to know: are you guys interested in these lives? Like, should we be doing more frequent random lives here and there that aren't necessarily podcast episodes, but just fun little things to experiment with on our various social channels? So let us know what you think. And thank you all for supporting Go Creative Show. We really appreciate it and glad to be back. And let us know if you have any guest suggestions too. Of course, all things Go Creative Show at gocreativeshow.com. All of our past episodes are there, as well as this. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. All right, let's see.
So does that stop the broadcast?
It does. Let's see.